while getting things in order, I'd like to do the valve cover gaskets while I have the time right now, and I'll explain why in just a bit once I get these out of the way. Wrong size. 17s. 17. Okay, I'm removing these are the lift brackets. I'm going to remove these first, then I'll talk about what I want to talk about. Need to wipe them to a little oily. Alright, makes sense. It's been leaning this way, so I'm going to clean it up. Is the video capturing all that? Yeah, sort of. Okay, so just keep wiping this area. I have a few bolts to remove. These are the 10mm bolts around the valve cover. I already removed the coil packs, so it's not going to be such a huge fuss when I pull it up. One more. So what happens here, let me pull this up. Okay, nice and easy, comes out. I know I said I was going to get a full set of different coil packs, so these are just hanging out for the time being. So this is your valve cover. So in determining whether I'm going to reuse this particular valve cover, it already passed the first test. The first test says when I pull these out and I see oil inside, oil here, it's supposed to be dry, then you have a problem with your valve, with your coil tube, with your spark plug tube gaskets. That makes sense. Or rather, spark plug tube seals. So this is where your spark plugs go into, and this is a tube. Let me zoom in a little closer there. You have spark plugs in each of these tubes, and you have 4 of these tubes, so for your 4 cylinders. And the spark plug tube is sealed by this circle. You have 4 of those inside the valve cover. So if these are compromised, you'll be leaking oil into the spark plug tube seal. Not only that, when you install your coil pack like this, you will usually see oil on the inner side of the coil pack, and that tells you that you have a problem here. So ideally you don't want that to happen. I mean, they sealed it for a reason, right? Misfiring is probably what you're going to see. So first test was to make sure that the valve cover passes the spark plug tube seal test, which is, as I said, as simple as just pulling the coil pack and looking at it. Second thing is look at it and make sure it's not warped. Right now it's got a little bit of oil on the side because due to me, I opened it, I loosened everything, and then I didn't fully tighten it when I put it back down. So oil kind of went all over, especially with me turning the engine upside down more than once. I think, looking at it, it seems like I've already scraped. Usually you have some RTV in the corners or something like that. Unless the person who assembled this engine thought like me. I typically don't like to use RTV. Yeah, they did not use it, by the way. Yeah, there you go. That's a stand-up guy. No, it's not a bad thing. It's just the way I prefer to work. Instead of using, people use RTV because they wanted to hold it down. Hold this in the corner right here, because once you install a new one and you hold it upside down, it might fall off. So people use RTV or sometimes Vaseline on the valve cover, then set the seal on, the rubber seal. This one is really hard, it's pretty plasticized. So they get the new one. Is that visible, by the way? Yeah, I hope so. So they get the new one, put some kind of a fluid lubricant, something that will hold it down, and then install it. So I'll get rid of this one first, then we'll come back and talk about why I'm doing this right now. I did see a few things that I want to blow out, so it might get a little messy here. Oh, look at that. Oh. Notice a huge chunk of RTV over here. This wasn't getting blown out. So just blowing around, making sure there's nothing in here that would cause problems when I start the engine. See things flying off of that corner. Use as many cans of air as it takes to make sure that it don't screw anything up here. Don't send the wrong things into your oil system. So then one more, just wipe down. So now I've got two of these, two valve cover gaskets, 13270 AR000, and the other one is going to be 13270 AR010. Can't quite remember which one's the left one and which one's the right one, but it's not a big deal. We got this. We'll figure this out. I can obviously go into the catalog and verify which one's supposed to go where, but do I want to do that? No. I just want to make life a little harder on myself, huh? There you go. This is the one that goes to the left one. So now we know AR010 is the one that goes to the left bank, to bank 1. Okay. I cleaned the surface of the head, but I need to do the same here. So I'm going to wipe the spark plug tube seals. Again, the thing wasn't leaking when I took it apart, and I want to make sure it's not leaking when I put it back in. Right? Okay, so just wipe the sides. Probably could use the B12 cam tool to clean it, but I'd rather not. When it comes to rubber and plastic, my preference is not to let that stuff hanging in there eating things out, unless I'm trying to clean rubber or plastic out of somewhere. So here we go. Pretty clean. So lay this down. This is where people usually use RTV. I chose not to, just to hold it down. So here you go. This thing is ready to be installed. And what you do is do the test, hold it upside down. It's mostly there, right? I know some places might need a little bit of support, but it's fine. Let me bring it a little closer. Okay, so this is the gasket. And this is the ridge in which the gasket goes. So the OEM ones have these little bumps over there, and those bumps help the gasket sit in the ridge and stay there a little better, so that when I flip this thing upside down, it doesn't all come down, right? See, still pretty much there. It sags a little bit, but it's still in place. So what's going to happen now is, since everything is good, I did not need, and I prefer not to use RTV for cleanup purposes. I expect the owner of this vehicle to have it for a long time, and I might be the one doing the valve cover replacement, or rather the valve cover gasket replacement. So just come in here, flip this over, and install it. Let me get this out of the way. I'm looking all around, just make sure everything is still on there, nothing came off, nothing bent, twisted, or anything. Yeah, everything's still good. Here's the tab that says AR010. Push this down. You know what? Hold it, hold it, hold it. Before committing to all this, you might want to get some lube so that you don't tear your tube seals. Either apply it on there or apply it on the tube seal. Whatever you want to do, maybe get some lube. This one does have some oil from, you know, just being wiped around. But since I'm being extra here today, I'll apply this before pushing it down. It doesn't matter. Honestly, I've done it both ways, and when you install it, it just makes a sound and just sits, or seats. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Okay, so everything's good, just push. That's it, done. What I'm going to do is wipe out the Vaseline that I put. Oh, somewhere there. Doesn't look harmful by any means. Okay, great. Now let's get the valve cover bolts. There is an official sequence to all this. How you tighten the bolts down. You know, just kind of keep going across and all that. I'm not going to follow it today. I'm not going to follow it number by number, but what I'll tell you is this. Don't tighten this corner all the way down, then come here. You know, you have to do it with some, just trying your best to even it out. Make sure the thing mates flatly. So I would normally use this, and I will use it actually, with a caveat that you should be careful. Don't go too crazy on it. Don't bolt it all the way down. I just use it for the repetitive task of just pushing these down. See, it's not all the way down. I'm going to switch to something a little more user-friendly. Don't want to end up breaking anything here. So 12 bolts. They do require about 6 foot-pounds, so I'll do that as best as I can. My limitation here is that the thing doesn't really read that low. So you're almost better positioned just to do it by hand. If you've done it as long as I have, I can feel that. I like doing these by hand, honestly. You know why? Because you feel it, and you feel it just right. Have you worked, for people who work on their cars often, have you ever worked on tighten a bolt, then it goes tighter, 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 then loose? Yeah, snapped a bolt, and now it won't come out. You know, now you have to take everything out, drill it in, and tap, you know, drill it, tap, pull it out. But for what I do here, this is fine. I was saying this before the video got interrupted, that I like to do this because by hand, because you can feel it and reduce the chances of breaking a bolt. So then I run this paper towel just to make sure that there's nothing leaking. I have to say this, I know, highly privileged that I have the engine on a stand. Well, it's a sucky situation that the engine came to be on a stand, but doing this inside the car, you don't have as much freedom as I had to do all this. You probably need to find a way to hold your gasket up as you install it, unlike what I did here, and you pretty much don't have all the tools to. You can't even get a torque wrench in there. Not really, you can't. So usually you do it by hand. And so here's the other bigger reason I wanted to wait before installing the intake manifold. Let me show you what it is in just a second. Let's zoom in actually. Well, no need to zoom in. I'll show you what it is. See this right here? This rubber hose goes into a PCV valve, positive crankcase ventilation valve. And if you read down here, the writing says, well, about 3 Newton meters of torque. So not that much. But then what happens is this. Removal and installation of this piece is what gets a little tricky. I'll put this back on the stand to show you. Okay, so I can pull this out, pull the tube. I guess it's been on there pretty long. I'll need to replace these tubes. If I can get it out, that is. Might end up breaking as I pull it out. Okay, out it goes. So here is a PCV valve. Neat little thing. You have to make sure it's working correctly. See, the size there, is a little odd. Sometimes I end up using an adjustable wrench to move it up and down. Obviously, good luck getting the torque while you're using something like that, okay? But that's not the biggest problem. The bigger problem is access. With the intake manifold there, you're limited as to how many tools can actually get in there. However, with the intake manifold out of the way, look at that, 23 millimeters, and I'll be able to remove this thing from here. There you go, already came loose just by hand, just by hand. So this is one thing I like to do, is work on these while I can. And I don't know if you can hear it, but when you shake a good one, it's supposed to rattle. Let me get a good one for comparison's sake. Here they are. I bought brand new ones because, again, when it comes to the engine running properly, take my matters a little seriously. I'll tell you why I have so many things in this bag. Okay, here's the brand new OEM PCV valve. 11810 AR001. When I open this, okay, so here's a brand new one. Check it out. You can almost hear it already. Here's the old one. Pretty noticeable difference, right? So sometimes you could blow this thing because it's gunked up with oil. So just get some cleaner and blow it. And it's a check valve, so fluids go in this way. Nothing goes back the other way. Shouldn't. I mean, we're just having fun here. So let's spray this. Ooh, there's some sort of a plug over there. Okay, let's try shaking it now. A little better, but not quite there yet. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, you could see it go through, so that's good. But it's working in the direction we expect it to work. Let's blow this way this time. Coming back out, right? Because it is a check valve. And for people, you know, for the good of the general public, a check valve is a fluid control device that is supposed to allow fluid in one direction but not in the reverse direction at a given time. Air being a fluid, fluids are not just liquids. So let's try shaking it. It's got a little more of a shake to it, a little more of a rattle, but it's not there yet, you know? Anyway, I'll stop messing around with this. The whole point of this, of me trying to blow it, was to tell you that sometimes I know some people who take these and clean them out and shake them and make them, you know, make them rattle somewhat, but this is what a new one should sound like. There's no guessing if it's rattling or not. It is very evident, right? Anyway, so here's something else to note. This one here, the old one, here's an O-ring on it, if you can see that. But when you buy a brand new one from Nissan, it does not come with an O-ring. However, you have to at least have the, if you're replacing it, you might as well, you know, you might be tempted, or might, with good reason, take this O-ring out, the old one, and put it on the new one. Personally, I just decided to buy a brand new O-ring, and here's a part number, 11812 6N200. And that's the O-ring that goes over there for the PCV valve. If you do buy a PCV valve from, I think, AutoZone or O'Reilly's, usually they come with an O-ring, so that's just something to share out there. It just depends on what you'd rather do and what sits well with you. When I'm rebuilding an engine and I'm spending so much time and money on it, I buy things from the guys that designed the engine. Alright? I'll just do it as a dry run. I'm not gonna lube it up. And there you go. See how different it looks? I already threw the other one. Away, but you notice this one, it does look more like an O-ring and less like than a flat or squared cross-section thing. It's just that over time, as it is installed and just sits over time, it flattens out and the height gets closer to the plastic edges. So at this point, let's go ahead and reinstall it into this hole. I might have refused to lube it on the way onto the PCV valve, but since this is all plastic, things that might cut, it's kind of sharp really. I'm going to lube it on the way in. This is just talking about good practice, but I've done it without, and you don't really run into any problems. It's very unlikely that it's going to cut the O-ring. Okay, so there we go. Wipe this down. This thing with about 2 Newton meters That's way less than, man, not even, maybe 2 foot-pounds. And I don't have an inch-pound. I don't have an inch-pound torque wrench. So what I do for something like this, just kind of go by feel. If I can get my I was looking for my stubby wrench, but just go by feel, and if it's good enough compared to how it was when I pulled it out, I'll let it stay. There it is. That's gonna have to be good enough. Okay, after discussing what I was doing on the other side, I figured it would make sense if I just did this without really speaking through it. All I'm doing is replacing the valve cover gasket, In this case, I'll also replace the valve cover because this spark plug tube seal has a problem. It is cut. I do know this because, see, it's not even coming out. The rest of them come out pretty easily. So I'll be replacing this valve cover as well. Then replace the valve cover gasket, replace the PCV valve. Sound good?